This is Skip Lockwood, and you're listening to Mets Musing. I was a pitcher, a relief pitcher, a closer with the New York Mets. I have a new book out called Inside Pitch, Mets Musing. Thank you very much.
This is
Skip Lockwood, and you're listening.
And the one place to go for New York Mets news,
past week game reviews,
upcoming series previews,
interviews,
analysis,
opinion, and what's going down on the farm. It's Mets Musings with Gary Mack. So keep the faith, stay optimistic, and let's go Mets.
Mets Musings with Gary Mack.
Now it's time for some New York Mets baseball talk. Here's Gary Mack bringing you the latest news and analysis from Mets Nation and the world of baseball on another edition of Mets Musings.
And hello and welcome to another edition of Mets Musings, episode number 329. And folks, what can I say? And apparently from the outcry and the voicemails that I've gotten, I don't have to say much at all. People suggested to me that I just replay the last couple of weeks' podcast because it's going to be the same sort of rant. But I'm not going to do that. We're going to be fresh and clean and new every week. But what I am going to do, I am going to play what you people said. What the voicemails that came in said. How the fans are feeling. Upset. Passionate. Angry. All of the emotions across the board. We've got 3 voicemails that I think are going to explain everything. And really, I couldn't have said it better myself. So without further ado, let's start with our first voicemail from Jeff on Long Island.
Hey, Gary, Jeff from Long Island. This past month has been very hard to watch. If anything positive that can be taken from this is finally the starting pitching is pitching like the staff we expected coming out of spring training. The DeGrom is up there with Scherzer as the best pitchers in the National League. Matz and Wheeler are pitching much better, even Vargas is doing well the last few starts. Hopefully Syndergaard can return to form when his finger is healed. Now if the bullpen can stop giving up runs. Of course, the pitchers don't have anything to show for except maybe losses as the teams can't score. Heck, they can't even hit lately. They're averaging just a bit over 4 hits in the month of June. 4 hits. They can't score without any offense. I know I sound like a broken record, but these guys must use the entire field. Jay Bruce and Michael Conforto are always swinging for the fences. Do these guys really think about exit velocity or launch angle or how far the ball will go when they really ought to think about putting the ball in play? Preferably where there are no fielders. And that means hitting the ball the other way against the shift. Probably easier to do than it sounds, but don't they take batting practice before every game? Don't they have a batting cage in Citi Field? Isn't there a hitting coach? Hitting against the shift will prevent teams from shifting and thus opening up the side of the field to their strength. And Ahmed Rosario, try laying down a bunt once in a while and let Nimmo Cabrera try to drive you in. Nimmo is the only everyday player worth watching on this team. Why aren't they feeding off his energy? You know, I remember an old saying, get him on, get him over, get him in. Mickey, try playing some small ball. Obviously, waiting for home runs while exciting is not happening. At least not until Yones gets back, and who knows when that will be. Have you seen a more fragile player in your life? I know it's hard, but things got to get better from here. I mean, just have to, right? Take it easy. Bye.
And thanks, Jeff. And geez, you'd think they'd have to get better from here, but who knows? And Yoenis Cespedes is slowly taking over from Moises Alou as one of the most fragile players ever to play in a New York Mets uniform. But it's incredible why this guy can't get on the field. And if he's got a congenital hip problem, then let's see if we can fix it. You know, end the season, get it fixed, operate, and get it over with, and come back healthy next year, because he's not going to help. If he comes back and he's only 50%, he's not going to help anyway. So why not just, if it's something that needs to be operated on, or can we find something other than strains and pulls and this, that, and the other thing? Flexors or whatever. Let's try to find something that there's got to be something that's causing this, and let's find it and correct it. All right, our second voicemail comes from our good friend Trip, all the way from Kentucky, and he's upset.
Hello, Gary. This is Trip in Kentucky. I hadn't talked to you in a while, so thought I would call in. Boy, what a season. It's just been a mess. Thank you for doing the podcast. It certainly helps to share in the misery with someone. In some ways, I feel like this season has been even more frustrating than last year. They started off so strong, and I don't know, it seemed like the way that they were playing was exciting, and they were really, I don't know, it seemed like they had a lot of good chemistry, and it was sort of a just next man up type of a thing, and they just seemed to fall off of the face of the earth. So I don't know, I was just wondering what you thought. Do you think this team is the team we saw in April, and they're just having a really bad streak, or do you feel like May and June is more of what this team really is, and we sort of just got lucky in the beginning? Well, thanks again for the podcast. I look forward to listening to them every week, and hopefully we'll have a good stretch here in Arizona. Thanks, Gary.
And thanks, Trip, for taking the time to call in. And whether or not this team is as bad or as it looks right now, I think it's the old saying. It's not as good as it looked in April, but it's not as bad as it looks now. It's somewhere in the middle, but this is a bad team. It's a bad team the way it's currently constructed. Why is Jose Reyes on this team still? But we've been asking this question for the last how many weeks, folks, and I don't want to beat a dead horse. But it's things like that. And as far as last year, this is more annoying than last year, and I'll tell you why. Say what you will about Terry Collins, but his team always seemed to be prepared. These guys actually look lost at times. They don't know which base to throw to, and the coaching staff looks like it has no clue at all what they're doing. I'll give you an example. The other night when Callaway got thrown out, and the cameras showed in the dugout DeSarcina and Island, and they were like looking at each other like, do we take the pitcher out? Come on, where's Callaway? Callaway said, well, it doesn't matter because he was thrown out of the game. Pitchers, managers have been managing after getting thrown out of the game since the beginning of baseball. You find a way. You send a clubhouse kid as a runner. You send a player on a bench as a runner. Maybe they could have used Reyes for that. He's not doing anything else. You find a way to get that info from the manager to the pitching coach. But isn't that the job of the bench coach, though? Isn't he supposed to know these things? How is he going to advise a manager if he doesn't know what the heck to do himself? And what about the pitching coach? Isn't he checking the stats and checking how many pitches were thrown? And he don't know when to take him out? He can't tell if the guy on his staff is getting tired and running out of gas? If that's the case, let's get rid of them. Clean it out. You got dead wood there. I mean, this coaching staff is making Terry Collins and Dan Warthen look like Einsteins. And I'll tell you one other thing. These guys were always ready to play for Terry Collins. They played hard. They were prepared. And, Callaway comes in here in spring training and says, well, we're going to streamline the spring training days, and we're going to get our work in, but we're going to streamline it so they're not here. It's hot out there in Florida, and we don't want to be out in the hot sun all day. Well, is this the result of that they don't know what base to throw to? They're lackadaisical in the outfield and the infield. They're making stupid throws. They're not touching bases. And it's even affecting everybody else in the stadium, because the other day there was a gate open in Citi Field during the Yankee series, and a ball actually went through the bullpen gate. Nobody saw that? Is this contagious to the whole grounds crew now? How crazy is this? And one other point. Yes, there's a lot of injuries. But why? We changed doctors. We changed staff. We thought that was the problem, right? But take a look at the Mets minor league system. They got tons of injuries down there. There's a problem in the organization. They're not preparing these guys right. And it goes beyond Rosario swinging at everything he sees and not having an idea what the strike zone is. That's one thing that they're not preparing them on. They're not preparing them on how to run the bases. They're not preparing them how to steal bases. They're not preparing them how to bunt. And something is lacking if all of these injuries are taking place throughout the organization. Not just in the major leagues, but throughout the farm system. How many guys have Tommy John surgery in their system? Anthony Kay, Thomas Zapucki, to name just a few in the last couple of years. And there was a couple, I think this year went already, pitchers. And not to mention the pulled muscles, the hip flexors, this, that, and the other thing. There is a problem, and they are not addressing this. Where is Sandy Alderson? He should be reading the farm teams, the Riot Act. Why are we having this problem? And yet he does nothing but search the damn scrap heaps and gets us Chip Beck or Chris Beck. But I wasn't going to talk. So let me compose myself and bring on our final call, which probably sums it up better than I could have done. And that's our good friend Barry from Long Island.
Hey, Gary, it's Barry, your former partner, and believe me, I was not going to call in after episode 324. But with the Mets in this literally historic run of offensive futility, I thought I would put my 2 cents in, which is 2 cents more than this offense, bullpen, or anyone associated with the Mets not named Jacob deGrom is worth right now. Where do we start and who gets blamed for what looks like a team with nothing again outside of deGrom to make even the most optimistic fan feel good about the team? Ownership, the GM, manager, coaches, players, medical and training staff, and anyone associated with player development are all culpable. And let's, while we're at it, throw in the PR department. My first call-in for 2018 said the Mets were living in an alternate universe. One example being that Michael Conforto came back from his shoulder injury weeks before his expected return date. But now it sure seems like it would have been nice if he had played at least a few rehab games in the minors before being put on the Major League roster. Now, anyway, we are back to where the injuries are just as plentiful despite new medical and training personnel, including Jim Cavallini, who worked for the Army, for crying out loud, being hired in the off-season, and when they put a timetable on return dates, they make fools of themselves. Syndergaard's 10-day, he'll miss one start injury, most likely will now keep him out for weeks, if not months, and the same goes for Sespe, who supposedly changed his training and nutrition habits and yet still gets hurt and will be out for an extended period of time. The goodwill he accumulated for his 2-month run that led the Metsies to the 2015 World Series is pretty much used up, and people are criticizing the Mets for re-signing him. In many cases, the same people who would have hung Alderson and the Wilpons in effigy had they let him sign with the Nationals, as was the rumor after the 2015 season. And poor Jay Bruce, who was clearly playing hurt, but not being put on the DL because the Mets don't have the organizational depth in the system to put even a live body out there to replace him adequately. There is enough blame for everyone, so I will limit my criticism to starting with the manager who makes so many head-scratching decisions during a game. It makes my head spin, and I have never, ever heard Gary, Keith, and Ron question anyone else's decision like they have Callaway's. The Wednesday game, just to pick one, with a runner on second and first base open in a scoreless game. How in the name of Chipper Jones do you not intentionally walk Freddie Freeman? And then the night before, when he got tossed from the game for arguing that hit by pitch to Brandon Nimmo that the umpire overruled, the coaching staff had no idea what pitching changes to make and when to make them, and they still have no concept of the right time to double switch, which again goes back to the bench coach coming from the American and not the National League. And with the Mets in this historic offensive funk, how does Pat Rossler still have his job as hitting coach? Also, I don't mean to pick on one player, but Ahmed Rosario was considered the number 2 prospect in all of Major League Baseball at this time last year, and you can see the raw talent in him. But how does he not have any plate discipline or not know how to bunt or steal bases? Rhetorical question, and for that I point to the player development area. Mets players come up to the big leagues and do not know any of the fundies necessary to be a successful Major League player. There is absolutely no accountability in this organization. The farm system, considered in the top 5 only a few years ago, now ranks 29th. And let's be honest, Gary, if history is any indication, should we realistically expect any of the young position players developed by the Mets to become stars or even good players? In 57 years, I count 5 that came through the farm system who played most of their career with the Mets and became stars. Wright, Reyes, Strawberry, Edgardo Alfonso, and Cleon Jones. That's 5 players in 57 years, and that is unfathomable. So what is the solution? For starters, Alderson, if he really means that he accepts playing for this mess, should retire because you know Freddie and Jeffrey will never fire him. And since the farm system is so barren, the only way I see the Mets being a decent team again anytime soon is to shop DeGrom to the highest bidder and deal him for a boatload of prospects, even if they come from the Yankees. Despite his Cy Young caliber pitching, the Mets are 5-9 in the games he has started this year. Well, Gary, this one took a little longer than I thought, but there is so much to criticize and not nearly enough time. So as hard as it might be, let us try to keep the faith, stay optimistic, and let's go Mets.
And thanks, Barry, for checking in. And I couldn't have said it better myself. He covered all the facts that we've been talking about, and so true. I would add one other player, maybe Kranepool, to that list of guys that have made it. But there hasn't been a lot in 57 years or whatever it is. So, folks, it just gets very frustrating, and I hope that you hear that in my voice and the voice of all the people that took the time to call in. Thanks so much to Barry and to Jeff and to Tripp for taking the time to do that. And anybody can call in anytime. And I guess we're going to have nothing but venting and rants the rest of the year, the way the year is going, unless they can turn this thing around. All right, let's take a break, and I'll be back with an interview that I recorded yesterday with Jacob Resnick of MetsMusings.net. It's very interesting, and we talk about pretty much the same stuff, but we talk about the draft and the minor league system and who to look for. So stay tuned for that. We'll be back right after this.
Looking for great Cardinals talk? Then check out Conversations with C70. My name's Daniel Shoftaw, and I talk with some of the great bloggers on the internet today about their teams, but it always goes back to the Cardinals. Find the latest episode on my website, www.cardinal70.com, or at baseballpodcast.net.
Did you know that Baseball PhD can be heard on baseballtalkradio.com?
Our shows rotate with other top baseball podcasts.
Now, don't forget, that's baseballtalkradio.com.
With us, we'll help you get a PhD in life through baseball.
With baseballtalkradio.com, you'll hear the rest of the excellent universe of baseball podcasts.
516-619-6341. That is the comment voicemail hotline if you'd like to be a part of the show, and drop us a line, leave us a comment or a voicemail question, anything at all. Call that number 516-619-6341, or go to MetsMusings.com and click on that widget in the middle of the screen, and that's a speak pipe, and you can leave a voicemail right through your computer through your computer's microphone. Or if you prefer to do things the old-fashioned way, send us an email at metsmusings@gmail.com. The Facebook page is facebook.com/groups/MetsMusings, and the Twitter handle is at MetsMusings1.
With all the Mets news, it is the news from around the world and around the corner. Here's Gary Mack.
Joining me tonight is a writer from MetsMiners.net, Jacob Resnick. I'm sure you've seen his work on the internet all over the place. Jacob, welcome to Mets Musings.
Thanks a lot, Gary.
Jacob, about 10 days ago, we had the amateur draft, the Major League Amateur Draft, and the Mets selected Jarred Kelenic in the first round, the number 6 pick, and got kudos for that. The second round pick, they picked, I think it was 48. Not so much. What can you tell us about Jarred Kelenic and about Simeon, got to get this right, Woods Richardson?
Yeah, so I think I like the Kelenic pick a lot. You kind of read about his background from Wyoming, or from Wisconsin, kind of like Brandon Nimmo, who's from Wyoming. Both of them didn't play high school baseball. Kelenic, it seems like that was the guy they kind of had their eyes on from the start. There was some rumbling that they might go with a college bat, namely Jonathan India from Florida. But Kelenic was their guy, and it's kind of a cop-out maybe to say that their first-round pick was the best pick in the draft, but he's really the only guy where you look at him and you say, okay, maybe he has major league potential right away. Tools, all over the board, and none of the tools are like plus, above average, screaming at you right now. They're more kind of like solid all across the board. Hitting, fielding. He's got a fantastic arm. He's going to start in the Gulf Coast League, like pretty much all of the high school draft picks do. And I think, he'll have a chance to move quickly. They're not going to rush these guys. That's not something the Mets like to do. But I wouldn't be surprised if he sees Columbia by the end of 2019. As for Simeon Woods Richardson, yeah, that was kind of a surprise. I don't think anyone really had him pegged as the pick, and I don't think Simeon did himself. He was at a Buffalo Wild Wings when he was selected. Wasn't really thinking that he was a day one pick, but he's a project, no doubt about it. He's born in September 2000, so he won't be 18 until after the Gulf Coast League season is over.
Wow.
Velocity's kind of been up and down, been anywhere from high 80s to mid 90s. So, they're going to have to work with him, and it'll take time, but they're kind of betting on these two high school guys to pay off down the road.
Now, is he the guy Richardson that could have been had at in the third round or even longer?
Yeah, I think so. Usually the way the draft works is teams have deals or an idea about who's going to sign ahead of time. So this feels like a pick where they had scouted him for a long time, and they felt, I guess, more comfortable with it. I don't think that he would have been picked on day one had they passed on him. But definitely surprising from my point of view.
And they picked 5 catchers. I think it was 5 throughout this draft. Nick Myers being the highest, but the one of the guys that fascinates me, and I guess it's because my wife and daughter both went to Wagner College. So the 15th pick, Phil Capra, out of Wagner College, kind of interesting to me. Do you think he's got any chance at all?
Yeah, obviously tough to tell right away. He's a switch hitter and a local product. He's going to start in Kingsport, so not really sure kind of what the plan is in terms of progression. He put up great numbers with Wagner, and I feel like that was the way they went throughout this draft, is they tended to take a lot of guys who put up great numbers in college, and maybe not necessarily guys who had tools that could be translated to the major league level. So doesn't hurt to have more catches in the system at all.
Right, and this is a system that's very thin in catching now, as we've seen. So that's I guess they addressed that quickly, and I still think they drafted too many pitchers, but I guess you can trade them if they get hot.
Yeah, they had that run on day 2, 4th and 5th, 7th and 8th, and 9th of these college pitchers, and I guess they're hoping that they'll kind of move quickly through the system, but like you said, you never know when it comes to trades down the line.
Right. Now we know that the second day they went with a lot of college kids, as you were just alluding to, and do you think we'll see any of them in Brooklyn this year, or starting in Brooklyn? Because sometimes they do move those guys to Brooklyn.
Yeah, so pretty much all of the day 2 guys will be in Brooklyn. I think the one that I would be most excited about is the 9th rounder, Bryce Montes de Oca from Missouri. Okay. He was a senior sign, but a guy that a lot of people have had an eye on for multiple years. And when he was drafted, Jim Callis of MLB.com said that he loved this pick and thought that he could be in the big leagues within a 2-year span if he stays healthy. So. In the first season in Brooklyn, they don't tend to throw very often or at 100%. So likely, 2019, St. Lucie's a possibility for this guy. And he's already had Tommy John surgery, so that's probably something you have to worry about with him. So yeah, but Montes de Oca, Tyler McGill from Arizona, Kevin Smith from Georgia, Riley Gilliam from Clemson, when he signs, they'll all be in Brooklyn.
All right, so it sounds like a pretty good year. It's going to be in Brooklyn. We're going to have some high draft picks there. Any dark horses in the draft? Any that the Mets drafted? Anybody drafted late that? I know it's hard to predict these things, but
yeah, for sure.
Anybody that you said that you thought may have gone higher and went later in the draft to the Mets and may have a shot?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I mentioned before, their strategy has really been to save money on the college players so that they can spend more on the high school players. And one of those guys that they went over slot to sign was Saul Gonzalez from high school in Florida. He went in the 23rd round, and he was a guy who probably has the talent of an 11th or 12th rounder, and the fact that they were able to get him in the 23rd is a pretty good sign. He's a big kid. He's 6'7", coming out of high school, and throws mid to upper 90s. But all of the high school players are raw. Whether they throw hard and need control or don't have the breaking pitches yet.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll take some time to really see how these guys develop. Brian Sharp is another guy that I like. He went in the 26th round from Missouri. They did take a couple of guys from Missouri, and Sharp will be in Brooklyn to start. And he put up a great line this past season. He also pitched at Missouri, so wouldn't be surprising to see if they let him go 2A for a little bit.
Another Brendan McKay?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to do, but we'll see, yeah.
It certainly is, and he did it quite well last year for Hudson Valley, pitching them into the championship series last year in the Penn League. So it can be done, and I think they're letting him do it this year. I haven't looked recently to see what his record was, but and last year's second-round pick, Mark Vientos, who they seem to be very high on, he's going to start the year in Kingsport. Is that correct, you believe?
Yeah, he's going to be in Kingsport. I get, some people were maybe predicting that he'd start in Brooklyn. And, I may have been one of those people, but it's not too shocking to see that he's going to start in Kingsport. He played 4 games there at the end of last season after spending most of the season in the Gulf Coast League. But the guy is crazy young. He's won't turn 19 until December. And there's no reason to rush him. He's got a lot of tools, and he can harness them in Kingsport. I didn't get the best of reports from extended spring training on him, but I think he's a guy that he puts everything together. I think the Mets are looking at a guy who could really help the big league team maybe in 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's such a grind, that extended spring training. It's hot. They're playing every day. There's nobody there. I mean, it's a tough situation once everybody breaks camp and they're left down there. And so, maybe just, not that he shouldn't be putting out, but, maybe he just was cruising along. He's 18, like you said. So, not everything falls that way.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, now the minor league system, Jacob.
My specialty.
Everybody says it's so bad, and we see that it really hasn't been able to supply the major leagues right now. But from all reports, there is hope on the way in the lower minor leagues. There are a lot of pitching help, but not much on the non-pitchers. Can you elaborate on that at all?
Yeah, well, I wish I had some better news for you when it comes to that. It's really been rough, especially in the upper minors. When you look at Las Vegas and Binghamton, they've had to sign, so many minor league free agents just to fill rosters and eat innings and take at bats for guys that have gotten injured. So if you look at the Las Vegas pitching stats, their best pitcher has been Matt Dendecker, who's made 3 appearances on the mound for them, and actually has fared pretty well.
Wow.
2 2/3 innings, which is sad, but yeah, I think like you mentioned, the pitching. It's been good to see, guys like Justin Dunn and David Peterson, first round picks, really showing their talents this year.
Mm-hmm.
Both receiving recent promotions and well deserved at that. And then you look at guys like the relievers who they acquired last year in the various trades that they made. Guys like Drew Smith, who is really knocking on the door for a major league promotion. Daniel Zamora, who they got over the winter for Josh Smoker. Ryder Ryan was the return in the Jay Bruce trade, and he was named an All-Star in St. Lucie, and they got promoted to Binghamton. So there's no one, outside of the Peter Alonso, Jeff McNeil types. There's no one who is flashy in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
But you're looking for the dark horse, diamond in the rough candidates, and I think there are interesting names throughout the system. You just kind of got to dig to find them.
Well, of course, you just mentioned Peter Alonso, and of course, everybody's talking about him. Everybody wants to see him up with the big club, and Sandy Alderson addressed it the other day, said he'll be promoted, but probably not to the big club. But this guy's tearing it up at Double-A, as well as Jeff McNeil, another guy you mentioned. They'll probably go to Vegas. Any chance? I mean, if Dom Smith struggles at all, will they consider bringing Alonso?
Yeah, it's a tough situation. If you look at it from a baseball operations standpoint, with the whole 40-man roster deal, you don't want to start the service time clock too early and worry about all that kind of stuff. But from a performance standpoint, I mean, Alonso, he's been fantastic, but the Double-A to the big leagues jump is not one that many players find to be an easy transition. Michael Conforto, who did it in 2015,
right.
He was a rare breed. But Alonso, the numbers have been fantastic, but from a scouting perspective, I think you still want to see him be a little more selective with the swing. A lot of the walks that he's drawn have been a result of pitchers pitching around him, and rather than expert plate discipline. I agree with Sandy's standpoint that he needs to be in AAA, but I don't really know if major league promotion is really what's best right now. And thinking realistically, he's not the type of player that's going to save the season per se. And then you look at McNeil, who's kind of come out of nowhere. He has had a bunch of injuries the last couple of years, and now he's finally healthy and getting consistent at bats, and it's really been great to see. And people the other day were kind of frustrated when Ty Kelly was called up to the big league squad instead of McNeil. And Kelly, I feel, it's not like a knock on McNeil, but Kelly is a very disposable player. So
yes,
they were willing to make that decision. But like you said, like Sandy said, they should be in AAA, and once they are, I think you'll really be able to see whether they are contenders or pretenders, as they say.
Mm-hmm. Anthony Kay, another interesting prospect, a pitcher, left-handed, was drafted, I think, 2 years ago in the Justin Dunn class. He was the supplemental, I think, or the second round.
Yeah.
Never made it to Brooklyn. He was on the roster there for like 30 seconds. Ended up getting Tommy John surgery. He's back. He's healthy. Last report I saw, he was pitching pretty well. Is he still pitching well? And is he another one to keep in mind?
Yeah, he's he's been roughed up a little bit lately, but he's another guy that is too old for the South Atlantic League and really shouldn't be there because he's kind of taking advantage of those hitters. He's been racking up the strikeouts, and it's really been good to see coming off 2 years of inactivity. Not the guy that's really going to blow you away with the fastball, especially after surgery. But it doesn't hurt to have those Long Island lefties in the system.
There you go. Yes, that's what we want. We don't want all them fireballers. You got to have a junk guy out there once in a while.
Exactly.
Another guy that I like personally, I saw play in Brooklyn, and that was David Thompson. I know he's had some injury problems. How is he progressing?
Yeah, injury problems. That's been it for him. And unfortunately, this year it continued. He fractured his hand on a hit by pitch early in the season, so he hasn't played since April 29th. That was his last game, and he was kind of struggling to get at bats throughout April. I think it certainly helps that he plays third base. When he comes back, and may have been in line for a promotion pre-injury, but being that this is his fourth year in the system, it's kind of getting to that make or break time, and he'll be 25 in August. So unfortunate with the injuries, but I like his hit tool, and his defense has improved a lot in his Brooklyn days. I remember being at a lot of games where he made some pretty awful throws to first base, but he's kind of cleaned that up a bit.
You just reminded me of some things. A guy that got cut recently, and I was really a little shocked when I heard it, was Cody. Well, I always forget his last name. Woodmansey.
Yeah, Colby Woodmansey. That was a surprise that they gave up kind of so early on him. But he's another guy with the injuries. He only got into about 50 games last season. He had a sports hernia that needed surgery, and just really was never able to get into a groove. And then this year, he before spring training even started, had a hip impingement, whatever that means, and needed surgery for that, and he wasn't going to play this year at all. So unfortunate that they spent the 5th round pick on him, but that's how baseball goes sometimes.
Yeah, you never can tell with the injuries. And got to ask about Desmond Lindsay. Saw him in Brooklyn. I have to say, I wasn't particularly impressed with him. I know he was a high school kid. He's very young. But I didn't see much there. I mean, the strike zone was lousy. Even the outfield defense was not good. What can you tell me about Desmond Lindsay?
Yeah, I mean, he was 18 when we first saw him in Brooklyn, and I mean, you can see the tools. He had pretty tremendous pop in the bat for someone his age.
Yes.
And obviously very athletic in the outfield. So, yeah, I mean, the results just haven't been there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's frustrating, but at the same time, you kind of still got to give it some more time, given that he's 21, second-round pick. Those guys usually get a longer leash. Got off to a pretty bad start with St. Lucie this year. He's been better as of late. And he's another guy last year who suffered a lot of, dings and nicks, and missed 3 games here, 5 games there. Was on the DL for a while. Needed elbow surgery at the end of the season. Had a concussion at one point. As you know, he wears those glasses on the field, and I believe there was a problem with the prescription, so he wasn't seeing the ball particularly well. So I have faith that he'll put it all together at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if he spends next year in St. Lucie as well. But I think he's definitely a guy to still keep an eye on.
Did he play in Columbia last year? I don't remember.
Yeah,
so he did.
Only gotten to 65 games, but yeah, he was there.
They may have been better off just leaving him in Columbia for another season, or at least a half a season, and before pushing him along. I don't know. The injuries seem to be prevalent, not only in the majors but in the minors. Is there anything that maybe they're doing wrong in this organization at all?
Yeah, it's tough. just because there's a problem with the major leagues doesn't mean there isn't a problem in the minor leagues. And
right.
I think I counted at the end of last season, and there were pushing 40 guys that ended last season on a minor league disabled list. And sometimes those are used as just inactive roster spots to get other guys on the roster. But most of them were Tommy John surgeries, season-ending injuries. And some things like Lindsay's situation last year, he suffered a concussion on a play at the plate. That's a fluke injury.
Yeah,
but there seems to be a prevalence of Tommy John surgeries in the minor leagues, shoulder surgeries in the minor leagues. I don't know if you heard, but Jamie Callahan is still on the 40-man roster, needs shoulder surgery, and he probably won't be back this season. He had been with Las Vegas and probably was in line for a promotion at some point. But it seems, from my experience being around Brooklyn the last couple of years, it seems like it, and this may be the problem with the major leagues as well, but the communication just isn't fantastic between players and trainers and coaches and the player development guys back in New York. So I think, not saying a new regime is necessary, but definitely some better practices should be put in place, to say the least.
It's just, I don't know. It's very frustrating because
I don't think they know either.
Yeah, it apparently, but don't you look at your system and when you see this much happening, that you think that there's something we're doing wrong? I mean, it's got to be something, it's just. I'm trying to think of somebody's name. Maybe you probably remember the pitching coach from 2 years ago in Brooklyn, the young guy. I can't think of his name.
Who was that? Billy Brick.
Billy Brick, yes. I used to talk to him every once in a while, and he would say, oh yeah, Dunn's going 3 innings. That's all we're allowed to throw him, and this guy's going 3 innings. And I understand they're trying to save it, but I don't know. And boy, he disappeared quick out of the organization. What do you know anything about that at all?
Yeah, that was a weird situation. Not really sure what the finding in the first place and then the firing subsequently really was all about.
Yeah.
Definitely an odd situation.
I mean, they did a really good job. He had Dunn there. I think he might have had Zapucki there that year. He had Gabriel, Giannis, and I thought he did a real good job. Those guys were pitching really well, but he was going to next year for Royce Ring. So. What do I know? I'm sitting at home doing this. So what the heck do I know? All right. So anybody you see can help the Mets in the near future quickly?
Yeah, I mean that's the problem when you've got a AAA team with very few prospects on it. I mentioned Drew Smith earlier. He was the guy that they got for Lucas Duda. In 2017, he's probably the next pitcher in line. Other than that, I mean, in terms of hitters, I guess. I mean, I would assume that Jeff McNeil is the type of guy that will see the majors in 2018 at some point. Kevin Kazmarski, who skipped Brooklyn when he was drafted, went straight from Kingsport to Columbia. He's been playing pretty well. He had some injury problems at the beginning of the season, but he's healthy now. I was really looking forward to the season to Gavin Cecchini and the steps that he would take, but he was hit by a pitch in the foot, and he's been out for a while.
Yeah, I wanted to see him get a shot at second base and see, because he was playing with Rosario last year. It would have made total sense to me to bring those two up and let them play, up there together and see what they could do together. But like you said, he got hurt. So we'll know. And he's been coming on with the bat the last couple of years. So maybe he'll still.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe he'll still get his shot.
Yeah, I mean, no, never too late.
They held back Nimmo a lot, and look what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean that's a really fantastic situation with him, and it takes time. Whether it's the guy's second, third, fourth season in AAA, he always had the tools, and it was just about the opportunity. And I think that's what you'll eventually see with Cicchini, especially considering that Drew Cabrera won't be here next year.
Yeah. Then he's got to beat out Guillorme, but I think he can do that with the bat at least.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jacob, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight, and I really appreciate it. And tell the folks where they can find your work.
Oh, well, thanks so much for having me, Gary. Like you said before, MetsMiners.net. Got a lot of articles up there. Looking forward to the short season league starting this weekend and next week. Follow me on Twitter. That's at Jacob_Resnick, RESNICK. And I love to talk minors on the old Twitter.com.
All right, and we're gonna have you back on again because I enjoyed talking about the minor leagues, and the majors isn't too much to talk about these days.
Right. Yeah,
all right.
Anytime.
Thank you so much, and I'll be back right after this.
This is Skip Lockwood, and you're listening to Mets Musing.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for interesting baseball talk, opinions, and history.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for barbecue recipes, tips, and interviews from the world of barbecue. If you like baseball and if you like barbecue, then tune in to Baseball and BBQ. Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and BaseballTalkRadio.com, along with Mets Musings and other great baseball podcasts.
And we're back, and many thanks to Jacob Resnick from MetsMiners.net. If you're interested in the minor leagues, got to go check that out. And don't forget, the New York Penn League is starting a play tomorrow night. The Brooklyn Cyclones will take on the Staten Island Yankees in Staten Island. For game one, they'll come home to Brooklyn on Saturday to play those Staten Island Yankees. So the Penn League is going to start, and at least I'll have something to watch. All right, I got news here, and I don't even feel like reading it. It's so aggravating, but let me see if I can do this quickly. A.J. Ramos, shoulder, could be heading for surgery. Season's over, no great loss. Mets released Adrian Gonzalez, you know that. Promoted Dom Smith. Let's see if Dom Smith can finally do the job. And then the big news is that the Wizard of Citi Field came from behind the curtain at the scrap heap and came out to talk to his adoring public. Sandy Alderson met with the press on a conference call on Tuesday, and here are some highlights. They don't know when Yoenis Cespedes might return. Nothing new happened injury-wise. He's still experiencing soreness in his hip. The decision on whether or not to release Jose Reyes will be based on merit. Merit. He said it, folks. Merit. Is he not watching these games this year? Merit. They have nobody that can play as well or can breathe. Because Jose Reyes has been a joke. 2 errors on one play. He goes into a game, 2 errors on one play. He forgets to step on second base for a force and then throws the ball wild. But we're going to keep him on merit because there's nobody else that can do what he does. And Wilmer Flores could be returning soon from the disabled list. And Scrappy Sandy, good to his word, he went through the scrap pile again, dug real deep into the bottom of it to look for some relief pitch, and then he found one. He came up with Chris Beck from the Chicago White Sox. Beck is sporting a nifty 4.18 ERA in 23.2 innings with the White Sox this year. He had a nifty little 6.40 ERA in 56 games for Chicago last season. And who did they get rid of to put this dandy little guy onto the roster? They cut Tim Peterson, who had a 2.07 ERA. Sometimes I think Sandy's doing this all on purpose to drive us all nuts. All right, finally some good news. Left-handed pitcher David Peterson, the Mets' first-round pick in 2017, has been promoted to Single-A St. Lucie. He's coming off a stellar outing on Saturday night. He struck out a career-high 10 batters in 8 innings against Augusta. That was when he was with Columbia. He has posted a 1.82 ERA with 57 strikeouts in 9 starts in Columbia this season. He has completed 7 innings in all but one of his last 6 starts, with that one exception being a 6 2/3 inning outing on May 27th. More promotion news. First baseman Peter Alonso and second baseman Jeff McNeil, who had been crushing Eastern League pitching while with Double-A Binghamton, have been promoted to Triple-A Las Vegas. The righty hitting Alonso, 23, is viewed as one of the Mets' best prospects and a top 100 prospect in all of baseball. McNeil, 26, missed lots of time over the last 2 seasons due to an injury before breaking out in a big way this season. He was hitting .329 with 14 home runs and 43 RBI in 57 games for Binghamton, while striking out just 23 times. Let's see him. Bring him up. Bring him all the way up. Let's see what he can do. All right, the Metsies are out in Arizona for a big 4-game set, and then go to Colorado for another 4-game set. All of this exciting action after dropping 2 to Atlanta. Maybe they'll get 4 or 5 hits and have an offensive explosion hit-wise tonight. Let's hope. Vargas goes. Matz is, well, of course, Matz is not pitching. He's got a blister. Haven't you ever heard of pickle brine? It's that damn yarn. The yarn's too thick. It was proven by a scientist. The yarn is thicker on the baseball than it was from a couple years ago, and that's why guys are getting blisters, and maybe Syndergaard's getting strained ligaments in his fingers, whatever the heck is wrong he's got. It's the darn yarn. But where's Rob Manfred to say anything about that? All right, so I think I've had my venting session. I feel better. I hope you're yelling and screaming at home. I hope you feel better. And let's take another look this week and hope that we can make it. And on a serious note, last week we lost a big fan of the New York Mets. Alexander R. McCann of New Jersey passed away at the age of 89. He loved the Mets, win or lose, and perhaps That should be a message for all of us. Everyone here at MetsMusings send our condolences to his family and friends. And I think we'll end with that, and we'll see you all next week.